You're not doing the vanilla interview, Tom?
Hmm?
You're not doing the vanilla
We're putting the young faces out there. Vanilla is a young, vital project. It's a diverse project. We have fun. It is teasing. Me and my chain.
It's Monday.
Okay.
Provided that it's not a fork.
And I'm better looking than Gotham and Victoria. Rodrigo, you know.
Do that. Good feedback.
I can't.
I actually paid for my own. Pure storage pays for like selective pure storage.
Come to the video.
All right. We're degrading into messing around. That's not good.
Time for that sound effects machine.
Do you really want that to come back?
Yeah, it was kind of fun.
It was. I'm glad to hear that it didn't just drive everybody nuts.
I think it's remembered as a positive thing. Maybe we should let it remain that.
Okay. Let sleeping dogs lie. All right. So we got a bunch of stuff to cover before Sean leaves us. Sadness. Hey, Toby. Handle purging policy changes. Merging policy changes. So we put this on here because we've had a number of things that we've accidentally broken late in the release, merging changes to our policies. And so we're wondering if we need to have kind of like a freeze on that like we have had with other features in the past.
Do you remember what brought up this topic or what the breakage was? I can't actually remember.
I remember it happening, but I can't remember what it was either.
I don't remember either, but it was one of those many policies don't, what was it? I swear it was something Tommy like merged originally.
I think it was.
I'm just
Yeah,
making sure you're awake. You've been quiet today.
It was from one of the policy and code things.
Yeah.
And it, I don't know, something ended up being not allowed that was allowed by default previously was the vague idea, I think.
Is that a policy thing or the API scheme thing? Because I think we probably had issues with both of those going in kind of late that caused problems.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, the API schema stuff did cause some bug.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
All the bugs just look the same now.
Something's broken.
There's something we shouldn't have.
Well,
Regardless.
we can propose answers anyway.
Yeah, I don't think it matters specifically what the problem was. It was a problem we created. So that asks, also begs the question then, is it not just policy changes, but API?
Anything related to API permissions.
Yeah, should we restrict what kinds of things we land later in the cycle, or should we have a 3+2 policy?
I mean, whenever I saw this, the main thing that I think of is going and figuring out how good our test coverage is for testing policy rules or API validations or whatever. I mean, it's the dumb answer here is like, why didn't the test catch this before we merged it? Maybe we're actually already pretty good in that area for tests. I'm honestly not sure because I haven't looked at it a lot.
This whole area is voodoo magic to me, so. Who's kind of our expert in this area?
Well, there's multiple areas that we're talking about. I think there's the policy stuff, there's the validation stuff.
Well, all the policy stuff would be runtime, and I don't think Tempest has any policy specific stuff.
Well, there should be a couple of tests. I think there are some tests that try to do admin operations as non-admin and see that they fail and that kind of thing. But that's probably somewhat limited. We also ran into, there was one that I remember. We added validation on host names in some API thing, and it worked fine for every driver except for some NFS drivers because they had like a colon in some field that no other driver did.
So maybe just another case where we didn't really pay enough attention to third-party CI results.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
yeah.
for NFS, is there an NFS?
There's a few NFS CIs.
Okay.
There's the generic one, there's a NetApp one, there's a Nexento one. There's probably a couple more.
Are you aware of any kind of policy testing things that are?
There's a couple different ways to do it. I'm noticing two distinct patterns when we were doing the policy protocol. Services will take one of two approaches, and that is stubbing out the enforcer object to kind of return whatever. So that way they don't really have to go through hurdles to build like this fake context or a fake token object or something like that from Keystone and modeling what would be like an integration test. And, the other one is to do that model. If that makes sense. So the benefit in my eyes of doing the modeling is that you build this request. It's not even really a request, it's just essentially an Oslo context, request context object that you set properties on. And then you see that passes whatever the check string is for your policy. So what that will do is it forces Oslo policy to load your rules and then make sure that the rule that you're protecting that API with gets exercised in a way that you can assert in your tests.
We probably don't have anything like that right now in our unit tests.
To be fair, like we're going through some of this in Keystone right now with all the different scope types and things like that. And it does get pretty heavy from a testing perspective, but once the pattern is established, it's a recovery job. Just kind of getting the first few done so that it becomes a thing that people just kind of like.
With the ones that you saw out there, were there any projects that you remember that maybe were a particularly good example of how the testing was done?
I can go Dave and see if we can find one.
That's all right, I just was curious if any of them stood out as maybe being a good model that others should take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, I could take a look, but so are the tests for Cinder API protection in a specific spot that I can go look at? Or, good question.
Eric, do you happen to know our unit testing for API stuff?
So your test is API.
Yes, some of it. What specifically were we looking for?
Something that actually tests policy enforcement on the API calls.
I think there's some basic form of that in there somewhere. I mean, test volume has one that tests multi-attached policy for failures.
probably pretty sporadic.
Yeah, I'm not seeing a
Inconsistent.
lot of other stuff.
Yeah, that's the only policy check in the entire volume unit test file.
Oh, we have a test policy file. So test policy seems to basically test that the policy parsing engine works, but it's all made up rules. It's not like the rules we're actually trying to use for anything.
So I have a feeling we don't really have anything right now in Cinder, other than maybe that multi-attach one.
I did find one of the interesting bugs in this area that I think was at mind, maybe when we wrote this, was the when we added validation to volume type encryption, it started rejecting extra parameters that were in some dict that came in there, which was technically the correct thing to do. But Horizon also had a bug where it was sending stuff that it wasn't supposed to be putting in there. And so Horizon quit working because of that.
Yeah.
We had to back it out to save Horizon until it got fixed. And
Mhm. I remember that one.
But
That
that-
might have been what sparked this.
But that may be that's a little more broad because it's not even just Cinder. That's a little bit trickier case. And I distinctly remember that one because I tried to fix it and I had no idea how the validation code worked. And fortunately, Sean fortunately fixed it because I could not even figure out what was going on there.
Okay, so I think it doesn't answer the topic of this part, but I think an action out of this is we need to look at how we can actually test policy things and make sure, so that we have a safety net in place so that we don't merge things late in the cycle that screw things up.
So we have an example of this right now, actually, I think, that people have been begging for me to review, which was the splitting up the policy for some encryption API. What is it? Volume type encryption. They added new policy entries for create versus update versus delete. Whereas before it was all the same one. And I looked at it and I was thinking, this looks totally sensible. But it was really hard. I haven't +2'd it yet because I was having a hard time convincing myself I actually knew that it was correct. And I think the reviewer is actually still begging for me to go finish reviewing this. But if you want an example of one that's actually happening right now, there actually is one.
I can just put a link to it in there.
Yeah.
I've seen a whole bunch of things adding more granularity to policies, some of the APIs, and I'm not.
Well, this one I actually initially pushed back on saying, is anyone actually going to use this? And they say they will, and I mean, I generally believe them. But yeah, it hasn't always been obvious why it's an interesting thing to have.
Yeah, it's not clear if they're doing it just because they can, or if there's an actual use case that this is needed to support.
Quick question.
This one would fall into the there is an established reason to split the read-only operations from the changing things operations, which was the tier 1 support operator kind of use case where you want them to be able to debug but not break anything. And that actually covers part of this maybe too.
Is the other tab on the screen there linked in the main schedule?
Yeah.
Yes, at the top of the Cinder planning Etherpad, there's links to Etherpads for each day.
Try not to have a massive Etherpad. Didn't you say you have an intern coming on that's gonna be working on test coverage?
That's the hope.
Would this be a place where they might be able to help?
Maybe if we assume that there's actually like some kind of infrastructure to start with. I don't know what kind of task that actually is, I guess is my point.
Okay.
But it sounds like a good theory.
Lance just added an example to the Keystone test, so maybe if they could take a look at what's being done there and just duplicate that in Cinder.
Yeah, so what we're doing here, it includes an extra step that you guys probably won't need to do, but we're making like a test case where the user essentially gets a token as a persona, right? So think of it as like a system reader or a project reader, and then exercising an API with that token. You guys wouldn't need to do something that heavy. You could essentially model a token request using Oslo context, instantiating a new context object, setting a couple properties on it that we handle by default in Keystone middleware and Oslo context, and then you pass that into your forcer. Oslo policy will convert it to policy values automatically because of its type. So you won't have to do as much mucking around with tokens. You're just kind of building what you expect the request context to pass as, and then making sure that that either passes or fails your assertion.
That sounds cool.
So any other ideas, or is that the answer for this topic? Is the way we're going to handle merging policy changes late in the cycle is we're going to have tests that actually make sure that we're not breaking things.
I don't have many better ideas.
So I think people need to be aware of this now for the next development cycle, and if you see something, say something. If we haven't been able to get testing in place, we may want to shy away from it if it's after milestone 2. Does that make sense? I can maybe schedule a soft policy freeze.
I think usually anything that's involving policy changes is already attached to a spec, right? It's not common that we're, I guess other than these patches, we're just splitting up existing policies. Usually I think we're already tracking
Right.
a spec for any changes like this.
Okay. Anything more on that? We're good? All right. Next. Python 3's testing for third-party CIs.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this up with the group here, more of a raise awareness thing, but one of the goals this cycle is Python 3 first for all of the release notes build jobs and any kind of tooling, things like that. And it's all towards getting everything running Python 3 so that when Python 2 is officially end of life, where OpenStack is ready to switch over to just being purely Python 3. So that might be a goal in the T release.
I think yes, because as I remember in T release, we'll drop Python 2 support.
Well, we're not going to drop Python 2 support. Well, it's,
We're not
it's
gonna
been
drop it,
discussed.
but we're gonna at least make sure that we can run on Python
Yeah.
3.
the primary focus will be Python 3.
I think it's reasonable to create a soft requirement for this release to test with Python 3.
So we
hard requirement for the next release.
So we talked about this in Dublin, and we quickly realized that it was actually not reasonable then to try to tell all the third-party CIs to do this. And the reason was that the normal test suite for Cinder drivers does backups to Swift, which did not support Python 3 yet.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that there's been a ton of progress in Swift Python 3, but I don't know if it's something that they're shipping yet or if they're still finishing.
Yeah, I think they're still working on that.
Okay.
Can we just switch to Cinder?
I guess that would be one way to approach it.
So that was the kind of blocking issue, at least in my head, about not trying to push for this during the last cycle.
Yeah.
But I'm fairly sure, I could just be making it up, but I'm fairly sure that Swift is trying to run on Python 3 like during this cycle.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we have some general idea that Swift will probably finish it this cycle, then we can start asking for people to look into this and, you know, maybe do some weird things in the transition process. But
Yeah. Really, in my mind, I think having third-party CI skip the backup tests and running Python 3 would be better than staying on Python 2 and just waiting.
that's what I was thinking too, as long as we know that it's only like basically for one cycle.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot bigger risk of the drivers breaking due to Python 3 than anything related to backup.
Yeah, because we've had the goals to be able to do the other, to have the unit test running in Python 3 and functional tests running on Python 3. So we think all the core Cinder code is fine. We just have no idea on a lot of the third-party drivers whether they actually really can run on Python.
Well, and the scary part is the third-party driver requirements that maybe don't really get unit tested even.
Oh, yeah.
Because until we start seeing CI runs on that stuff, we don't really know if they've actually been ported successfully or at all to Python 3.
And a lot of the maintainers of the drivers probably don't know yet either.
So, is there a functional Python 3 test that we?
Yeah. There's functional tests that's in the gate, quoting. But we can only run that with LDM. We have,
That's all we run it on currently, I think.
yeah.
I don't know why we're not running it for like NFS. I should probably look at that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's just the third-party drivers. A lot of them will, well, not a lot of them. Some of them require some other libraries to be installed. Of course, they need the proprietary hardware device, so there's really no way for us to test it. It's really up to the vendor to test it.
Well, this isn't something that vendors are going to be able to opt out of. I mean,
Yeah,
Python 2 is going to go away,
yeah.
not too far in the future. So
that's why this is really kind of more a thing to raise awareness, to let all the driver maintainers know this has to be done.
yeah,
This is coming.
we don't want them to become aware by realizing that they no longer have a
Yeah.
Cinder driver that anyone can run.
Yeah, so if we do switch in the T release, we don't want to lose half of the Cinder drivers because we suddenly find out most of them have issues.
So for testing the driver with Python 3, it's just setting a flag on that stack to download everything.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And then, of course, having a Python 3 runtime installed.
Trainers.
Yeah, we're just assuming. Everybody knows about it. So Ian McDonald wanted to know if this was running Pi 3 in addition to Pi 2.7, or if it's a switchover.
I would say just switch it over.
Yeah,
Because asking them to maintain all the overhead of running both just doesn't make sense.
I mean, if they want to run both 2 and 3,
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
but it doesn't really make sense to require
Yeah,
both.
most people have a hard enough time just running 1. I don't think they really want to run 2.
We have just switch over to stable jobs as well, or?
No. So Rocky is, I guess if they want to run against stable branches and they want to run Python 3, that doesn't hurt.
Well, how many third-party CIs actually run stable anyway?
It's not a lot.
It's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
So the stable branches will have the LVM upstream Python 3 job, but probably nothing for third-party.
So I'd say it's not a requirement, but that's, if they want to do it that way, they can.
I'm just thinking of like distros who are stuck when the LTS releases, they're still running 2.7. With the Cloud Archive, they run for a couple of years after.
If we've moved to Pi 3 and we're not testing Pi 2.7, if a tree falls in the woods and there's nobody to hear it, because once we move to 3, people aren't going to be, well, I suppose I could go force it back to 2.
Yeah, and eventually at some point, we're going to want to strip out all the 6 stuff and go pure Python 3, especially when we get to 3.7 and have some things that we want to take advantage of that we can't. But
So along those lines, if we go tell third-party CIs to switch, what are we telling them to go to? 3.5 or newer? Or?
our right now, our officially supported target Python 3 version is 3.5.
Okay.
Well, there's move to 3.6.
Yeah. So I'd say 3.5 or 3.6, either one of those. I think we'd be fine.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're going to have issues with 3.7.
Well, we've had issues with all of them. I just keep patching them up real quick.
Yeah. But 3.7, they suddenly made certain words keywords and
Yeah.
Oops.
Wait, I thought they said no more breaking changes.
Don't call anything
After this
async.
month.
So is there any action item to come out of this?
I guess just
I
action
think we
item for
need
third-party CI maintainers to start working on switching over because
Yeah.
it's going to take them a little while and they need to do it.
Okay.
Somebody could always script up something that would print out, what CIs are running what. But I don't know that there's going to be a lot of volunteers to do that.
Should I send a note to the mailing list for all the people not here?
Yeah, that might be good. If you want to run by any of it by me.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else have thoughts or concerns? Okay, my turn to be a jerk. So I think every PTG we've had this discussion, and every PTG becomes more pertinent. I'm not avoiding the subject at all. Okay, so it became very clear during this release cycle that our cores are busy or have moved to other projects. Sean and I are doing a lot of reviews and making some mistakes. I'm not sure how we proceed. One thought is we run the flag up the flagpole, we start removing people so that the number of cores listed for our project more accurately reflects the number of people who are actually doing reviews. We don't really have anybody to backfill those people with. You know, we've talked a little bit earlier about better ways to organize the work. And that hasn't seemed to make a big difference, but we'll continue. I can continue to try to do that. I don't know. I need ideas from people because what we're doing right now doesn't work.
Free pizza for 100 rupees.
I had that thought in the bathroom before this. I'm like, what if I start offering rewards? And I'm like,
It's a tough problem. I don't know that I got any great suggestions for you.
So I mean, if you look at numbers here, well, Walt's back up. That's good.
Please makes font bigger.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah. I asked Helen to push her team, given that they asked a lot of us review-wise, to get more involved, and that was not terribly successful. Okay.
What is this querying, by the way? This is 30 days.
90 days.
Because if you pull up Stackolytics for Rocky, it looks very different.
Okay.
Which is strange. Not really important, but strange.
Rocky's much more than 90 days. So.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty similar.
Either way.
I'm just curious what the Archie project module. Okay. You know, and Xing's kind of phasing to a different point in life, so I'm not totally surprised to see that happening. I've been trying to keep John on the list, but maybe, I don't know. I'm going to cry if I have to remove him. So I need to start offering bribes, huh? Well, I can't even, I've been talking to my team and I'm like, hey, low bar for entry here if you guys want to get involved. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay. So, sorry, I'm being just blatantly honest at this point.
Well, one thing that I said I was going to do last time that I didn't is I was thinking we should document a more lenient policy on code reviews. Things like trivial documentation patches. I don't think we need 2+2s. Definitely like the translations.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've been just pushing those through.
There's similar projects that have such policies, we can just approve by one core review, patch like translation requirements. Past.
Yeah, but I think
Some
we
type
could,
of-
like Sean saying, document it. Make
Yeah,
it
just so
clear.
it's clear.
Yeah.
So we no longer have any discussion, nobody has any doubt,
Yeah.
like, yep, this is,
Yes.
sounds good.
Yeah, every once in a while I come across a patch where there's 2+2s on it and it's something really trivial and where it was a patch submitted by one of the cores, you know, and +2 by another core and it's, just get it, you know, send it through.
But are we comfortable with the 1 core and 1+2?
Oh, I see.
Eric got mad at me for
Depends a
it.
lot
So
on what
what
the
in
patch
Horizon?
Yeah, it depends on what it is.
Okay.
In Horizon, historically we've got the same policy, but or query, one query reviewer cannot approve patch with 1+2 if patch was done by his controller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's fair enough.
Which is not really, well,
Well, here,
okay, yeah.
for now.
we don't do it because Eric never reviews my patches.
If you try too hard to start writing down rules like that, it's just gonna make a mess of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just some of them,
A few
like
guidelines.
the ones you would, yeah, basic ones, and the ones that are pretty clear, like you were saying, docs,
Yeah.
translations, the requirements.
But do we want to follow the same policy for stable branches?
I don't have. Another thing is who is able to merge in stable branches, because
So it's a subset of cinder core that's a separate group.
okay,
Well, and the stable core, which is not the cinder function. Yeah.
okay,
You have a very unique little star on Stackolytics for that. That's different from all of ours.
I think it's okay to have the same kind of rules for stable.
Well, for stable, I mean, I don't want to say we need to be more, if we're going to try to merge in more things, I don't know that stable's the place we need to start with that. But
Are you
No, but-
normally merging totally trivial crap to stable?
no,
Who knows?
No, and you'll get Tony Breeds yelling at you if you start.
No, what we are saying is about merging the trivial stuff in a stable that it wouldn't require.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there isn't much trivial stuff to stable, right?
There is some.
You have bug
No,
fixes.
but some of the bug fixes are,
there's some like medium priority driver specific bug fixes, which are,
Oh,
we really want to land in there, but they're
Yeah,
not
you
going to
wanna
like,
So having a stable core do it with one.
yeah. Well, I don't
But
know.
I
that
mean,
we
we still have stable
We
courses.
don't usually have a huge backlog on stable.
You can't, Jay can't make a
Oh,
stable
we
core,
can't
he's
change
gotta
it?
go
Yes.
propose it
On the
to
stable.
the stable team.
No, he can't.
Oh, I can.
I can.
Really? Because
Yeah, I've gotta go
that's
to
how
the
I
stable
became.
team and nominate the person for stable core.
It's not.
And then they
well,
say,
no,
does the person understand the stable
because we
backward
should
policy and all
remove
this?
Duncan.
Run, I do the catechism and whatever, and then they give it to them and they do it. My only point is I'm not saying don't be lenient or whatever, it's just the criteria for stable branches has traditionally been higher.
I don't think we have a
Okay.
big review problem on the stable.
Do we wanna
branches,
add
is what I'm
Boca?
saying.
oh, okay.
We need to propose it.
I don't have an opinion in the center team, that's not my point, it's just data point, that when I propose, when I tried to add somebody to stable core and I had to go to
There is a
them.
goal,
I
so
talked to them
we
about
need
it,
to
so no, you gotta
propose,
go talk to
PTA
them.
should propose
Then they put me
a new
through a bit of a
member
rigmarole.
to stable team like we do for
Okay.
core teams.
Well, when is the last time we had
So-
somebody in the cinder stable?
Investigations.
We're gonna do that very soon.
Are we?
Yeah, we're gonna work after I propose it.
Does the person on stable core have to be stable? I'm just using Gorka.
I hope not. Otherwise, that
You can put a
nomination
creative
is getting
genius
nowhere.
there too, as well, instead of a stable genius.
What about removing Winston?
Oh, is he on the core list?
Yes.
I thought I removed him.
No.
Winston.
Did you just plus two?
Awesome guy, haven't seen him in years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do that, but it kind of has been going on a long time that we've been, we should have removed him, but we kept him on and.
One of those people who kept hoping would come back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anyway, that's kind of a different topic.
I will put together a note after the PTG proposing removal of some people and see what kind of feedback it gets. Not that I want to remove people, but also I think our core numbers need to better reflect our activity.
Well, and it's kind of important for the next part on there too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't hear people jumping up and down saying we're gonna help out and do more reviews, but we're gonna try to be more efficient about it. Is the answer.
Yeah, I'll try to help, but I'm not full-time in Cinder, so.
Okay. Or if you have interns or other people on your teams who are looking to get
Well, they're not
involved.
here yet.
But yes.
That is the theory.
Well, and I've got a couple of guys on my team that they're like, we want to do upstream stuff. And I said, well, here's how you get started. And they didn't necessarily like the answer, but you got to pay your dues. So, and you got to learn the code somehow. So,
You guys better
We put him on there.
Huh?
I just tease.
Gonzo?
Put
Oh.
him on there.
I'm a guest.
Yeah, if we could get Malcolm back. That would... So do you want corn cinder? Just,
I'm just submitting a patch. Is it that easy?
No, you're not good.
If you can do at least 3 batches a week, you're good. One a day, and you might be there. All right, I lost my window. So, all right, I won't harp on it further. You've heard I've spoke my piece. All right, so I put this on here. Eric kind of brought it up. So half the cinder-coresec team doesn't work on Cinder anymore. Some of them aren't even in OpenStack anymore. So that seems like a problem.
It's easy to fix that, I think.
So Mike Perez needs to go away.
Click the 7 active members.
Seven little monkeys jumping on security. Okay, so I think we can agree that Mike is not participating anymore. And
To go through a deprecation procedure. I'm all partially tongue-in-cheek.
and
But this is actually not used for anything, as far as I know, other than who can see bugs on Launchpad.
right.
So it's a pretty lightweight, they won't even notice it happen.
Okay.
Like, honestly.
And Duncan, I haven't heard anything from since Dublin, like literally not a word.
Yeah.
Would anybody else like to get secure with us? I think,
Well, that's what I'm wondering is like, should this just be cinder-core at this point? Or
all of CinderCore?
Or at least Cinder stable cores.
All of on,
Because-
and
I'm talking about myself, but it's reasonable to have at least stable cores because usually security tier part affects few releases.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you would want, yeah, makes sense.
so that would bring Eric and Yvonne.
I'm already on there.
Okay, so we would add Yvonne.
We can go to if you're still going to propose here, they will cover.
Oh, yeah. What is it, E1? I guess I need to search. All right. Well, that didn't do jack shit. Fucking Launchpad. It's like we should move to something different.
storyboard.
Oh, I have to select you. Look at me selecting you. I'm trying to. There.
No, it's-
No.
No, yes, and just click add member because
Okay.
this field allows you to add Launchpad user ID.
All right. And it did do something. It was just totally unclear of anything had happened. All right. Well, that was easy enough.
Can I ask a less important but related question to this?
Sure.
Go to launchpad.net/cinder-bugs. My question is, what is this and why am I constantly getting emails about people wanting to be in this group? And why do people keep wanting to join this group?
Well, the initial dev talk when I started actually said you should ask to be in this group.
I don't think it does anything.
So
I don't know, and it lets you triage bugs.
So
I thought, so there's another group for that too.
All of NetApp wants to be approved.
Right.
Yeah, because it said so.
So I think you might be right. It lets you do something in Launchpad. I'm not sure what though.
Assign other people, triage bugs, mark something as high or low.
Yeah.
Assign
So
milestones.
do we need this? Maybe we do. I don't know.
We are moving away from this.
Well,
Do we still take?
well. So I mean, I'm a member of this team by virtue of being on the Cinder Core Security Contacts team. Why is the Cinder Core team not a member of this team? It doesn't seem very well thought out. Like that's why I don't know what's going on with this thing. Yeah, Jay's the same way. See, it says J Core Security.
Mm-hmm.
So like me and Jay aren't even technically on this team. We're just on another team.
I'm an indirect member of this team.
I don't know.
Because
I
Cinder
just-
Core Security Contacts is a member of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it sounds like there
Who is
might
this guy?
actually be some reason that it exists. So maybe we just leave it there. But
How do I have so much karma?
can we set it where people can quit like proposing themselves to it? Has anyone ever accepted one of those?
I've never actually seen one of those. I have seen user has extended their membership
Yeah, I
in the
see
core
that too.
team or in the bug team. So, I mean, it looks like,
So if we get to approve or
looks like-
decline members, they're from like 2013.
so why did you extend your membership, Patrick? You were the fourth most recent person to do that.
Probably just something went by in my inbox. I was like, sure.
Sounds like
How about you, Matt? You were right next to him.
Yeah.
Just switch to storyboard.
Okay.
It seems like-
Honestly, I have little bandwidth for this because I'm trying to think storyboard now.
Oh, that's good. But
Okay.
is this going to show up in storyboard when we migrate?
Yes, I'm gonna add no, it's not.
I mean, I don't. It could. That's why I'm wondering. Like, I don't know.
I don't plan on adding
Okay.
it.
Okay.
But if you would like me to add it to the design and we'll.
No, it's good. I think it's going to be enough chaos already.
Okay. Not chaos.
Excitement.
Yes. I'm excited. Okay. I've lost it. Yes, I'm aware of that. Where are we? Okay. So I think we did what we needed to do there, right?
I think so.
All right. How to handle no mid-cycle PTGs.
We already know how to do that. Let's do what we used to do.
Well, so
Do we
there's
want to do what we used to do?
all crash at Scott DA's
I
house.
think so.
So-
I do.
So it was interesting because I had this discussion with Thierry on Monday, and he's like, "Oh, why the hell would you want to do that?" And I'm like,
because it was great.
because we got a lot of work done
It's like
and it
the
was
most,
useful.
the most productive times we ever had as a project was when we were doing the mid-cycles.
Okay, and he's like, well, but I'm not encouraging it. I'm like, are you discouraging it? Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. And I'm like, okay.
It's not like we're signing ourselves up to like suffer through something no one wants to do. I mean, maybe we are, but I didn't think so.
It's not like I'm saying, hey, would everybody like to defenestrate themselves? You know?
Yeah.
So there are a couple ways that we can handle this. Okay, so we're having a mid-cycle now. We'll see each other in Berlin. We can either have a massive gap between Berlin and Denver and decide it sucks, or we can preemptively do some planning and say, let's get together somewhere in February-ish to do like we used to do as a mid-cycle. I'm happy to offer up the Lenovo site in Raleigh, which I think is convenient for some people here.
I mean, it's less convenient than the one that's in my building. So that's another option, but it's good.
We don't have to decide on the location yet. You know, let's decide if we want to do this, then we can see who is willing to offer up space.
Who is coming to
The proximity to a pool hall.
My favorite because the week of March 4th, you'll have feature freeze.
Okay, so early in February, if we did that.
And who is going to
Late
Berlin?
January.
Wasn't this going to see the problem of having events for events of the year?
You got
Every year, it was one of the problems that they were trying to solve with
I don't think that's a problem.
yeah, it is. Some companies can come up for it, bringing developers to.
Well, I'm a developer and I don't go to summits anymore.
Well,
Like,
the
I
part-
go to
the budget
PTGs and
to
ready to go.
So how many people think if we had one somewhere in the US that they could go?
the Euro, please.
Ukraine.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Can you people +1 on there, on the Etherpad?
My good
I'm really not sure.
That's something.
If they don't have to pay a flight either, they can fly either.
Do you know that never happened?
How many people can make it to Dublin? Not doing
How
that
many
in February
people can
again.
make it back out of Dublin?
How about Ibiza? We'll do Ibiza in February. That'd be okay. I'm guessing we couldn't get that approved.
Spain.
I could. I could get them.
Hey, it's a $30 EasyJet flight.
Yep.
Or Ryanair.
Exactly.
Not even 1 hour.
It's less than an hour from.
No, probably a little bit more.
I was gonna say, because from Barcelona it was 45 minutes or so. But anyway, not that I went to Ibiza. Okay. So it sounds like something we want to think about. Yeah, of course, we would do the usual remote attendance for people.
Well, I think the question there is not just remote attendance to a mid-cycle, but do we just do a virtual mid-cycle where there's no travel involved, but we pick a day or two that we all hang out on?
We did, I know we did at least one of those once.
Yeah, that was back in the.
I don't think
days.
they're anywhere nearly
Yeah.
as good. They're kind of awful, honestly.
I think Manila tried that
Yeah,
in the last
didn't you wanna do
PTG.
that?
Yeah.
They were not too happy.
So from Manila, we found out that pure virtual or pure presence is better than half virtual, half person.
Well, I'm sure, but
Okay.
I don't know that pure virtual is really gonna be anywhere nearly as useful. Just as a guess.
Virtual mid-cycles.
Or maybe if we have like two mid-cycles in the cycle virtual, it will increase the productivity. Because we don't have that big productivity as being personal, but having two more
another mid-cycle result maybe would help.
We didn't have mid-cycles on the previous releases because we had the PTG, but as far as I know, the forum was not really a mid-cycle then. So
It wasn't supposed to be.
yeah, it wasn't supposed to be, but do we really feel we need a mid-cycle?
Yeah.
Does it really change that much?
Discussing technically every 6 months on PTG.
Yeah, I mean, if
But
we
we've
don't have
been-
a,
yeah,
if we don't
we've
have a
been
PTG, I think we do.
Sorry?
If we don't have a PTG, I think we do need one.
But we have it, the PTG.
We'll have it at the summit, but we won't have something in the middle of the cycle.
What Nelson is saying is we get together in mid-cycle, discuss all the technologies, and in the summit, we don't do that. People just go to the forum, but it's not the same discussion. And then after 6 months, we go to the PTG again. And in the end, we are getting together to discuss every 6 months.
Exactly.
Like it will be in the summit.
That's what we've been doing.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm confused.
No, so for the people who didn't go to the summits,
Yeah.
that, or the, in the forum, it's, the
Still
new
one.
format will be the same for them because there'll be a PTG co-located with the summit every
So
6
it'll be
months.
twice a year.
Yeah.
Which is good, except for everybody being all distracted and running out because they gotta give presentations and meet customers. All that stuff we avoid by having mid-cycles.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the questions is, do you expect you would go to both events? And get together with the team at both events? Or are
I mean,
you
that's-
expecting that the mid-cycle would be the main cinder grouping? I don't know. I don't have an opinion, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, that would be one expectation. I know in the case of Manila, the reason I, in particular, didn't like our virtual mid-cycle was not so much because the virtual mid-cycle didn't work okay as a Manila get business done thing. It was that I didn't get to go to the PTG. When we did a virtual PTG, I didn't get to go to the main PTG because my employer wouldn't sponsor me because I'm having a virtual one. So I missed those interactions with the other teams and sidebar groups and so on. So, just data.
We could try a first virtual PTG and see how the next, virtual mid-cycle and see how the next time we come to Denver, how that goes. If it's like you say, we are running around like we used to, or if it's okay.
We did one once and I don't remember it being incredibly productive.
But it also wasn't really organized.
Yeah, but the whole virtue
more
of
about-
coming to the same place is that you have a ton of stuff happen that's not organized because you're bumping into each other and talking to each other.
Right.
I don't buy that that's going to happen in a virtual call.
That doesn't happen.
That's the thing.
So I'm saying we got the business done, but we didn't get the
Yeah, I mean,
I'd say if
other
we
stuff,
can
the
find-
serendipity,
That's why
If we can find someone willing to give space, so it's a low-cost event, and there's at least 8-10 of us that are willing to go, love to have a lot more than that, but 8 people getting together in a room and talking over stuff like this is
yeah.
better than not.
Raleigh's a smart choice because Lenovo will do it, maybe NetApp will do it,
Yeah.
Lenovo has Wi-Fi and it works, unlike IBM.
You did it to yourself, man, bringing that back up. We were all zipping our
Well,
notes.
without Duncan and John here, somebody's got to bring it up.
I think that was the one that I removed it. And it was not a good experience.
Well, it's because you were streamed over my cell phone,
Yeah.
my poor melting cell phone at the time. All right, so let's leave it that we'll talk more seriously about this in
I think now it's a good time to discuss this, right? Because when are we going to discuss it?
okay. So it sounds like there's a majority that would like to try to do it in a location that is easy for travel for a number of people, which would be Raleigh. We don't have to decide who's going to host it. We'd like late January, early February. Is there,
Next up, should we get an Etherpad started and start collecting where people are offering room for us to stay, to hold the events? And names of people that are interested in going and start some of those details?
okay. Sound like a plan? And for, I apologize for those that can't make it. Whee!
Sorry.
Wow.
Nice catch.
Yeah. That's great.
But we'll do our best to make a remote experience that works. I'm getting better at the whole broadcasting thing. And we'll see how things go. All right. Eric, you put on here untyped volumes with default volume type.
Yep.
What's up?
So the big question is, why do we bother supporting untyped volumes at this point? So we had a bunch of bugs a while ago that I think have mostly been fixed, where if the volume type was none, weird things would happen because we wrote a bunch of code assuming there was always a volume type. If we decided there was always a volume type, we could just do that everywhere and it would be more simple for the code. I'm fairly sure that anybody deploying Cinder, if they're not using multiple volume types, I mean, so the design of Cinder basically is that volumes have a type. And so what I'm proposing, yeah, I'm getting there.
But I'd like to note that our HOSP deploys without a volume type.
It doesn't
It
anymore.
does now.
Not anymore.
Oh, did you fix that? Nice. So as I go into Horizon, it's like,
So-
there's no volume type.
So my proposal basically is that as part of the Cinder database bootstrapping process, we create a type. We create a type called, default or something like that. And it's just a type that doesn't have any specs in it, but at least then all your volumes have a type. If you want to do things with it, you can. If you don't, it's just there. It doesn't hurt anything.
What's the difference between just using bone as a type?
We had like 20 bugs because of that.
Yeah.
Fixing that because we fixed it.
Yeah, no.
And you can't reliably do things like retype from none to a type. I forget, but there's a bunch of stuff like that that's problematic, I think. Because if you create one with no type and then you want to retype it to have a type, I think that's not possible. I could be wrong. We might have fixed that one too. I don't
That
know.
might have been one of the bugs where it would try to look at the original one and the new one to see what it had to change.
Right. So it's my question is there really any advantage to supporting not having a type? And my answer is no, that there's not an advantage at
That's
all.
cool. That's cool.
Well, a default empty type is basically the same thing, but then it gives us the assurance in the code that there's always going to be something there.
And I suspect a lot of deployment tools maybe do this anyway. I haven't looked, but I'm basing this on our data point of 1 because we decided to do it. I don't know.
So what do you put in this default type in Triple O right now? Yeah, in your in the change that Alan made. What extra specs go in there?
Oh, nothing.
Well,
Nothing.
Right.
So it makes sense
Well-
for the service to create it.
It doesn't point to your default LVM that you create or the Ceph that's created it.
There's no extra specs at all.
Okay.
So upgrade wise, or thinking about the deployment tools that right now are creating a default volume type, is it going to cause an issue if suddenly we start creating a default volume?
You would create it only if it's not confirmed.
I mean, we can do it in a way where it won't, I think.
Not if it's
Yeah, we can just check if the default name exists, the volume type.
Yeah.
If it exists, you don't create it, and that's it.
And we can have an online migration that takes all the volumes with none and types them to the new thing. I don't think that's terribly hard to do. And I think it just makes it so that everybody that deploys Cinder out of the box is kind of in a more known state. It's what we as Cinder developers actually want them to do anyway, I think.
So you're proposing something as Cinder comes up, which could be the API, right? That creates the default volume type.
No, you create a migration that does that.
Oh, okay, cool.
The migration
So
does that. You
migration
change
handle it.
the default value of the configuration option to the same name that you are creating there. And then in online migrations, you do the change of everything that has not, now has the new name.
I don't think it's a terribly hard thing to implement. It's mostly just deciding whether we think it's the right thing to do or not.
And then by default, that type will be used, but since it will use whatever backend's available in the scheduler. And because there are no extra specs in the type, it'll have a type, but it won't really mean anything until they set something.
Yeah, I mean,
more.
it behaves the same as not having a type because there's no constraints placed on it.
But it doesn't blow stuff up when you hit type checks
Right.
going through. Okay.
And you'd want to name it something that's not default.
Yo, change me, bro.
I mean, why not default?
Because if Triplo has created a default type and an existing installation, for instance, I mean, Triplo, it could be anybody, right? So an existing installation could have a default type with some extra specs in it,
But we
but
can
your
also
type is not really the.
we
that
can also
type.
make the bet though that if they called it default, we can just use it as the default.
Maybe, but it could be on a backend that's really not default.
But that's probably what they wanted anyway, because you remember, even if we create default out of the box, people are then going to go add specs to it. So there's no assumption that it's going to remain an empty volume type. It's just what you get out of the box.
Is it, we're gonna like put some restrictions around being able to delete these or like force volume creation to have a type or something like? Can you
Well-
get back into a steady
Well, the
state
volume
without-
creation part, you just can apply the type if it doesn't specify one. We would have to make it where you can't delete the default type.
But you can make something else default.
Yes.
You can change its contents.
Yeah, or you
No,
can
you
make another
Well, he's saying change
default.
its name.
Yeah, if they create a new volume type and use that,
Why
why
would-
would we not want them to delete the default one?
They can't delete the one that
If there's no,
we are identifying as the default one.
well,
Right, that could cause
unfortunately
problems,
they
I
can,
think.
but.
Right?
Well,
Can we just have like a secret type that
Yeah,
it's only inside of Cinder that
it's-
shows up?
it almost
I'm
would
not
have to be
seeing-
hidden, because then if they list volume types and
Hey.
say, oh, I don't want that, I don't want my users using that, they try to delete it, and if we don't let them delete it,
I think we should let
But why-
them delete the default,
Yeah.
because I know that there are deployments out there where they want, since Cinder doesn't support having per user and per tenant default values, only the one that it's available. I know deployments that they specifically set a non-existent volume type as the default, so it crashes whenever they try to create something.
But you can still do that. You just set an extra spec in it that will either, you could do it today by setting an extra spec that would never be satisfied. Or as part of this effort, we could just add some extra spec flag that we identify as, blow up when anybody actually uses this type. I mean, you can still do that.
Yeah, but I think, if I remember correctly, that our API actually checks the volume type. So you get, the error message you get is directly to the user. Whereas if it's in the scheduler, the one that detects it, you don't get right now. Unless we start using the user messages, you wouldn't get it. Error.
I was on board, but now we're veering off course.
We're not veering, of course, we're just
No,
veering
we-
deeper into
yeah,
how to implement it.
yeah.
I think everyone's
It's
cool
the
with
same
it.
course.
Yeah.
There are so many
Yeah.
ways to accomplish this, but I think we need to converge on the one that provides the best user experience.
Well, my
Yeah.
argument is that creating a default volume type is gonna provide the best user
And
experience.
No,
I
I
agree
think
with that.
we
I
all
agree with
agree
that.
with that. I think we just,
Yeah.
like you were saying,
Yeah.
we're going deeper in, and now it's whether you allow them to delete it or not.
And I think
I think it's okay.
they need to be able to delete it if they don't want to use it.
Yeah, and having a default volume type that blows up is not a good
Can-
user
Okay,
experience.
so,
Can we add a check?
so if they delete it, then what happens if they don't have any other types?
So could we add a check that doesn't let them delete
The last type.
the last type?
Yeah, that would make sense.
That would make more sense. If we want to make sure they're not typeless.
Or we could, if they delete the last one, we automatically recreate that default volume type.
Oh my God, that would be so
When you
irritating.
say you don't want conceptually that you're not gonna let them delete the default type, or is that the one that you created or the one that's currently set to default equal in
I think it was both of those at different points, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I'm-
confusing.
I'm talking about the one that we create. So if I come in and I'm like, okay, default's nice, but I don't need it, I want
Okay, so that's
Lenovo
one
volume.
kind of restriction. Another check would be to say, let's look at cinder.conf. It says default equals Eric. Because they went around and messed around, and now their default type is named Eric, and we don't allow that to be deleted. They still have the protection that there will be a default type always. I don't know, that seems
Okay.
safer, that one, than the one that says we never allow them to delete the one that we made.
Okay, that makes sense.
But I don't know that I thought it through all the way, but I mean, that seems safer than just saying we'll never let people delete the one that was automatically made.
They could still go change the default in the conf to a
Yeah, but that's
non-existent
okay.
one, but
That's okay, I think.
But I don't think we're gonna allow that, that was kind of the point. Why would we want them to do that?
To change the default.
well, I mean, I'm not saying
No,
you don't
to
want
change
them
it
to
to a
do that,
non-existent type.
but if they're stupid, they can.
The whole point is to let them not be stupid so that we know the code works. Because we fixed like 20 bugs caused because we did this already.
But
But I think
all you
there's-
need is a default, right? You don't need that one was the default.
Right, but I was objecting to him saying we should allow them to go in cinder.conf and set default volume type equals none. And I think we should not do that.
Oh,
because
no,
then-
I didn't hear
Yeah.
that, sorry,
Yeah,
Eric,
we
sorry.
should not
No,
allow it to be none, but it should allow it to be a non-existent one. which
If
is
they
different.
say default type equal none, then they have a default type named none.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the services should not go up because it does not exist.
With what? No, the service should start.
Yeah.
And when you
It'll-
try
yeah.
to create
Yes.
without specifying a volume type, it will just fail on the
Yeah.
API.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
what they
like when
would want.
creating a volume, you don't specify, but then it doesn't find the one defined in the cinder-conf, so it fails.
Yeah, which is what they
Right.
want.
Which is probably not what they want.
No, it is what they want.
Because
If
that's
they
There are
do that,
customers who want
that are
that.
hitting this. But this is a backdoor behavior if the admin is expecting this behavior.
But
It's
I
the
think that
admin who
makes,
didn't create the default type. That's not what, I mean, they didn't read the documentation.
no, but the case we are trying to not break for customers is where they want the create without a volume type from failing. They want it to fail.
But then I would use what, Eric was suggesting, an invalid extra spec, because that's.
But that doesn't work because if we add the user messages, then okay, but if we don't have that,
Feedback
it
would not-
fails so at
And
next
that's-
level.
It works, it's just
When
not,
they-
it's not very user-friendly.
Yeah, the user doesn't know why the volume turns into error.
Right.
In the other case, you get a response from the API telling you, hey, I can find the volume type. Usually they give it a meaningful name, like please select a volume type or something like that. So immediately you get a response that makes sense. That's the case. But if we, in this effort, we add a user message in the scheduler, then I'm okay, because they can still the user can still find out why is it failing.
I like user messages. I can do that.
Yep.
Anyway, but
Then I'm okay. I
so
just
we're
want customers to know.
not we're not writing down any of these decisions here apparently.
So it
Well, I've
seems
been
to me
waiting
that-
for us to kind of reach some decisions, and then I was going to document.
What if we just agree to improve the error message and create a situation where it returns the best error message to the user instead of hacking around the existing?
Because the root problem's not about the message. It's about having a consistent model of the information associated with the volume.
That's the root. We just digress into me not wanting to keep something they don't want just for customers that are currently using it. That's the digression we suddenly want.
Okay, so confusing.
Do we need a spec to call this out to make
Yeah,
sure
we definitely need
people
a
aren't
spec for it.
confused?
But we need to write down what we're gonna put in the spec
Okay.
before we all forget in half an hour.
One beer and it's all gone.
I leave the room and it's gone.
You have to
Okay.
keep drinking until it comes back.
The drink or the other?
Idea, I think.
Okay, so we want to create a default type at Cinder database migration. Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
We want an online data migration that changes all volumes with volume type from none to this new default.
Yeah. We decided that admins could go into cinder.conf and change the default volume type to some other type, like they can now. But we don't allow them to change it to no volume type.
And the default in cinder.conf right now is to leave it unset.
Right.
And we
So
change it.
We want to change
We
the
need to-
default in cinder.conf
Default,
to
yes.
say default equals
Whatever name
probably
we decide.
default or whatever name we want to
Yeah,
choose. Default type or something. It's always a little funny to see default equal default, but maybe default equal default
Yeah.
type or something like that.
Mhm.
Sounds right.
Yeah, but then we gotta argue about whether it's got an
Yeah, I know.
underscore or a dash.
I was just setting you up. I'm in another team, man. I want the old Cinder where you can argue about that forever.
What's that, John? Or is that's Mark Duncan?
Yeah, let's call John and ask him what he thinks right now. Duncan.
Duncan.
And the other one about not being able.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to finish typing. I was gonna say the same thing.
Let's leave another one and see how this works.
What do you mean?
We do have a default type requirement. It's just a little different.
No, we don't have the problem because during our migrations, we enforce default all shares.
Ben's not here to say we thought we're better than this.
I'm with you.
Definitely, we'll have it go.
Yes. Will not let the admin delete the volume type that is set as the default.
Yeah, I mean, I would write it differently, but
How would you write it?
the point is.
Let's go write it.
The point is, yeah, I'll just write it. Oh, yeah, we will not, let's do. So whatever they do,
That's
we end up with a type.
All right.
Did I write the same thing
Yep.
you wrote?
That's delightfully ambiguous, but
It's not.
Yeah, but it's, I don't think,
How is it ambiguous?
because there are a lot of
there
different
are,
ways to do
there are
it.
different ways to do it.
It's not ambiguous, it's just broad. That's the point. I didn't want to have to list all the different ways.
Okay,
That's why I wrote it that way.
that's what you're gonna put in the spec?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah, action there, got it. right.
Action.
Yeah. That would be important.
Okay.
Cool.
With Finch on that.
Yeah, I didn't see that happening with the way things were going there for a little while. Yeah, we were at the drink beer action.
Well, if
What
it's
is-
there,
What are these emojis?
I think one of them's not beer.
There's a beer.
I think it's a beer and a tumbler glass and a water bottle.
Oh, okay. Emojis are so confusing to me.
Your bottle's tilted the other way on your computer compared to.
yeah.
Mm,
Windows.
Bottle's backwards.
I just get some updates.
Really? You don't support the alcoholism
Your
font?
OS.
I have full alcoholism support. Oh God, I should have ended this stream before I said that. Oh, shit. It's the end of the day Thursday. So, fallen at the last hurdle. How many people are going to be back here tomorrow?
How much stuff do we have for
Yeah,
tomorrow?
Okay.
we have cool stuff going on.
Do we have cool stuff tomorrow? Let me how cool.
Sell
Let me
why
do-
we,
oh,
sell why we
Jesus.
do.
Words are hard. Let me tell you how cool tomorrow morning is. We're gonna go back and do the Rocky retrospective over. No. All right. Helen Walsh wants to talk about Barbican with live migration. I don't know what that really means, but
It was about multi-node dev stuff.
There is one issue from yesterday that Shannon and I discussed offline, and we thought it's a good idea to revisit briefly.
okay. Can you add it to the Etherpad for tomorrow?
Okay.
Do we need to talk more about third-party CI, Eric?
Yeah,
Okay. We can always
we
do
actually
that.
do, because there's parts we didn't even talk about.
Okay. Who's on CX? Okay. So we'll talk about Cinder API for storage live migration if they're around. And Leakshoy one?
Lisa Lee.
That's you?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got failed volume driver, reinitialization, forced deletion of volumes. And then Erlon has online extend support on drivers. And I would like to do a little priority setting on Stein with people, though if we're filling up the morning, I know people don't want to drag on into the afternoon. We could do that in a subsequent Cinder meeting. So that's, who wants to be here tomorrow afternoon? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. So I would appreciate your attendance in the morning, and we will try to get everything done. And if the last item falls off the table and we work on it in our meetings, that should be fine. Oh, we're gonna go back to driver capabilities.
Yeah, what is that?
What could possibly go wrong? That's Gonzo.
Oh,
Are you suggesting right now?
No, I think we all need a beer right now because I can't talk.
So if we each have a beer, we'll think you can talk.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, guys. Another really good day. Yeah. Good day, I say. And on that, I end the stream.